I want to be in a position where like one day I go to work and like I know that like anytime as soon as someone pisses me off, I'm like, oh no, 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 I'm out of here, right? So hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Juju, and welcome back to the 1% of Juju podcast, where we teach you the practical steps to live your life like the 1%. As always, make sure that you are subscribed, like, comment, subscribe, all that good jazz. Leave a review. Please do that, especially right now as we're not on social. The best way to help us out is either to like the video so it can be pushed in the algorithm so new people can find out about it, or really sharing it with whether it's your friends or family. So I really appreciate that. We've been a little slow on the growth side in the past couple of weeks, but I think that it's necessary. We're working on things to make things bigger, so I will require your help. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys tremendously, as always, obviously. But today we're going to talk about how much can you afford to spend, or when can you spend money, things of that nature. I'm not sure what I'm going to name the episode just yet, so stay tuned for that. But you're able to see it as you clicked into it, but I don't know at this point as I'm recording it. But I think it is an interesting question. I think it's a really good question. When can you spend money? How can you spend it? Where do you take it from? I think it's an interesting question because I think that we spend a lot of time speaking about the going up and buy homes and invest here and invest there and NFTs and crypto and then live below your means and all of that. That a lot of people might ask the question like, when can I spend my money? When can I enjoy it? Right? Like I see a lot of people riding in designer in fancy cars or wearing designer clothes, whatever it is. Can I never do that, right? Like, or even if I make a bunch of money, I can never do that. Is that what you're saying? And or how are they doing it, right? Are they all making stupid decisions? What is it? And I think that we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about it and you know get to the bottom of it today, right? And so step number one, I think that if you didn't listen to last week's episode, whenever you're listening to this, whether you're listening to this in months or years from now, go back to 1 week from this episode and listen to the app. I'll link it right here if you're listening to it on YouTube. Or watching this live on YouTube. But if not, I think the episode is something about happiness. I can't even remember the name of my own episodes. But yeah, so we're gonna link those here, but listen to that one just to figure out what really makes you happy. And I think that this is a little bit of a follow up to that, and it's really important to understand what leads to true happiness. And I think that that's where your money should be, right? And that's where your money should go. What do you really want? What do you want this money to do for you? Maybe you want, maybe you enjoy the material things, and maybe like that's what you want that money to do for you. And you working really hard, and that is the reason for it. And you're not wanting some of those, the freedom aspect, right? Like maybe that's just not as important to you. And if you're able to be honest with yourself, to go through the journaling, the vision statement exercises, and all of those things, and really acknowledge the fact that, like, hey, those material things do make me happier than the idea of freedom in the time, like at a time that like I don't even foresee right now, then that's okay. You just be honest with yourself. I think about myself, I'm someone that like really enjoys working. Like I don't really see myself like stopping to work and anytime soon. So I would say like, the freedom is important to me, and I'll cover that. But like, I think that the idea of not having to work is not as important to me than enjoying my overall life, right? Like whatever I'm trying to say. You get the point. Because when I go on a vacation, right, like after like a week, I'm starting to get kind of antsy to get back to work. I'm like, I want to get back to work, just because for me, like the way I see work, I see it as like fulfilling my responsibilities, and that just makes me feel good. Like I think that that's what fills me up as a person, is like making sure, like knowing that like I'm taking care of responsibilities. That's just me. That's not doesn't have to be the same thing for you. And that's why you have to go through the journaling exercises. You have to go through the vision statement exercises and understand yourself, understanding what's right for you. And I think that there's a lot of exercises that are out there to understand yourself better, and I think that they're very important, often and very often underrated, right? So even for myself, like, even though I don't see myself necessarily like needing to take off anytime soon or like stopping to work anytime soon, I do really enjoy, the autonomy over time, right? Like the fact that I can know at some point, like I joked about it, like I love my coworkers, by the way, but like I love the fact that like I want to be in a position where like one day I go to work and like I know that like anytime as soon as someone pisses me off, I'm like, oh no, 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 I'm out of here, right? So that's kind of like the joke that I always make, and that's the position I want to be on. But I don't really see myself, slowing down from a work standpoint anytime soon. But I'll talk about that, like, because we never really know, right? So um, but that's a little bit of where I am right now. Maybe on the flip side, right? You're someone that like you really enjoy having a beautiful apartment and a sky rise with a beautiful view and be comfortable, the nice designer couch and all of those things, and you enjoy that over the concept of owning a home or saving towards ownership of a home. And if that works for you, if it's right for you, once again, it's right for you. Um, so yeah, once again, if it is right for you, be honest with yourself, but like also know why you're doing it, right? Because like if you're doing it to impress others, because one thing I was going to mention with like the designer clothing and the fancy cars, the fancy house, the mansion, the this, the that, it really depends why you do it, right? Because right now we live in a society where there's like half of the world that's like that like worships it, that's like lives by it, and it's like if you don't have these nice things, I can't trust you, and I can't do business with you, and all of this, and they put so much of their personal worth and the worth they see in people into those things. And then there's other side that demonizes it completely. That's like, oh my gosh, every single person that owns designer, um, or that has a nice car, they're just disgusting human being. And I think that you have to find a balance. You have to find a middle. You have to understand who you are, and all of those things. It has to be for you, right? Like it has to be, uh, and maybe you pick one of those, right? Like maybe you're like, okay, well, I'll have the fancy car, but like to me, I'm fine living in an apartment, right? Like I'm fine living in an average neighborhood or living wherever, and just doing that. Or maybe it's like, okay, well, I'll have a really nice house in a nice neighborhood to set up my family, but the cars, I don't care. The clothing, I don't care. All the rest, I don't care. It has to be what's right for you. And I said it a couple times already. I'll probably say it again. The whole idea of it has to be right for you, and you have to find a balance and understand, right? Like that's why those journaling and vision statement exercises are so important, because you have to be honest with yourself too, right? Like it can't just be like, oh no, 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 I really like, the cars, and then you realize like, wait, now I'm behind on my car payment, and I'm just living to maintain this car payment. Now I can't take my family on vacation. We can't do any nice things, and that's actually making us more miserable, right? Like you have to be, you have to be true to yourself and real with yourself. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say there, but I think that you guys kind of get the gist and get the point of that specifically. This being said, even though there is no one size fits all in this, there are some rule of thumbs. And I think that some of those rule of thumbs are really important, because I, I wanted to speak about this because I often hear people say, oh, I got this place because I can afford it, or I got this car because I can afford it. And I'm just like always curious about this question and this phrase of I can afford it, because I'm like, can you really? Or what does that mean? Uh, you can afford it? Because I'm thinking about myself. I'm like, technically, I can afford anything that's like in my bank account, in my equity, and like that my home's at, and um, or like anything as much as my credit cards give me a limit, right? Like I can afford it, right? Quote unquote. So like, what does that mean? You can afford it? Because I really don't think I can afford a Lambo, to be honest. But I guess some people would say that I can. But so I think that those rule of thumbs, is it rules of thumbs? Put that in the comment section for me, please. But rule of thumbs are somewhat important and make sense. Um, because if you look at someone, if you're making $50,000 a year after tax, let's say you already paid the government, and you get $50,000, does that mean that you can spend $50,000? Let's say you don't have any debt. Does that mean that you can just spend $50,000? Because technically, you can afford to spend that, right? Um, so those that's where those rules of thumb come into place because I think that a lot of people genuinely just don't know. Um, so let's go back to that example of the $50,000, or no, we won't. We will talk about what the experts say first. So when you budget, obviously there's this whole idea of like 20, 50, 30 method that, a lot of experts generally recommend. And what that refers to is 20%, and the reason they put that 21st is because the idea of paying yourself first, pay your future self, pay, you know Juju or whoever, or if your name is Tom or Sally or whatever it is watching right now, pay that person first before you start paying your landlord and the bank and Gucci and car payment. Before you start spreading your wealth on other people to build their wealth, build your wealth first, right? So that's where they put that 20% first. So that refers to your emergency fund, your retirement planning, any other investment ventures that you want to partake on, whether it's going towards a real estate investment property, whatever it might be. But 20% savings and investment, then 50% towards your fixed expenses, right? Your rent, your mortgage, your insurance, your car payments, um, your groceries, all those things that you need in order to live, to stay afloat. 50% of your income should be going towards that. And then the last 30% refers to your discretionary, right? So you want to pay yourself, pay the bills, keep the lights on, and then you can go out and party, travel, shopping, all that good stuff. Now you have time to do that. If you want to break it down even further, right? Because you can do that. Experts recommend spending 30 to 35% on housing. So whether it's through rent or mortgage payment, you can calculate it, right? Like, okay, am I spending more than I'm making, more than I should on my rent? Do I live in an apartment that's a little too nice for me? 10 to 20% on food, 10 to 20% on transportation, 5 to 10% on debt repayment. There's all these lists, like literally like every single thing that you want. You can find it online in different articles. Maybe I'll link a couple, or maybe I won't. I feel like I always say that, and then like I just end up not linking things in descriptions, but I might try. Um, but yeah, I'll put it in the description where you can find those things. So you have an idea of like what you can afford to spend on a specific thing based on how much money you're making, what your income is, and things of that nature, right? And I think those are pretty safe, like somewhat safe, especially if you're, someone that's like, I'm okay to retiring at 65, right? If you save 20% of your income until, age 60, 65, you get a couple good years of returns. You get, maybe not that many down years of return, retire at the right time, you'll be fine. Definitely fine. But I do think that this still takes you, or that still gets you stuck in, what a lot of people refer to as the rat race, right? Like the rat race, like what is that? It's just that the idea that you're constantly chasing the next thing, because what are you doing in this situation is you're you're keeping those ratios the same, right? But like every single time, um, well, let's say you're making a little bit more money, well, now your lifestyle increases and your savings, even though it increases, it doesn't increase enough to actually keep track with like how much more money you would need at retirement, right? Because if you're now getting used to, let's say you start at 50K, but now you end up with a 500K lifestyle, even though you're starting with saving 10K, now you're saving 100K. Um, it's not quite getting you to that point where you have enough money saved up to keep up with that lifestyle. So you're always inflating your lifestyle, but not necessarily keeping in mind of what will happen on the back end of those things. And there's still a lot of risks that are involved with that, because you're putting yourself continuously in a position where your biggest asset is your income, right? Because as you're increasing your expenses, you're needing more money on a monthly basis, and money that you haven't necessarily had time to save, from a cash flow standpoint, and you don't haven't necessarily have time to save it. Let's say your first year making for that 500K, well, now you're spending 400K, right? Like, and that's what you're spending in your year. Well, you haven't quite saved enough in order to cover that 400K of expenses, since it's your first year living it. So you're always kind of in that rat race, and that's what that refers to. And that's why your biggest asset is your income, right? Your ability to get up and go to work and earn a paycheck. And especially when we're in our 20s, we like look at that and we're like, oh yeah, people just work. We just work. Like, that's just normal. Um, and I even said that at the beginning, right? I said that I was going to touch on that a little bit more. It's the idea of like, I'll never want to slow down, or I'm so, I'm hustle oriented. But what in the world do I know of what life will be like in a few years, right? Like, what do I know in our for myself at 27 years old? What do I know about how life is going to be like in the future? So if you're somewhere in your 20s, or maybe you're in your 30s, you don't know what life will, or even older, it doesn't matter. You just have no idea what life will look like. Maybe in 10 years you'll want to slow down. Maybe in 5 you'll want to, maybe in 20 you'll want to slow down. So you just don't know what is going to happen. And once again, and this is desire, right? Because I can always go through and be like, oh, I don't like my job, but okay, I'll keep going because I need to do. What about is something that like I can't control, right? Like, okay, well, my family now is a little bigger than I expected, or and I want to spend time with them, or maybe I have, I want to take a step back and my mental health is affected, or God forbid, my physical health is, I mean, my mental health and my physical health, God forbid, right? Like, knock on wood, those are both pretty bad things that we just don't know what's going to happen, in the future, and by being in that rat race. Like, imagine like having a family and you're in this massive house, massive, beautiful car. You guys have two of those really nice Mercedes Benzes. One of them is that G Wagon that you've been wanting your whole life, and you're making 500K a year. And then over a sudden something hits you, and you can no longer get up and go to work. Now you have this massive bill, and your family has to take care of it, right? Your family now has to, everyone is impacted by that. Now, you could argue, like, oh, well, if they never experienced it in the first place, like, what's the difference? At least they had it for a little bit amount of time. But realistically, now you're asking like your kids to change schools, all of this, all of that. Like, we don't have to go into all that, but um, I think that you get the gist of that. The other part is like, we just don't know what's going to happen when it comes to your ability to earn income in whatever field you're in. I think about, um, everything I'm doing right now that's earning me money can literally shut down tomorrow. Right? Think about the last 2 years. Some people were making seriously good money in like the hospitality, entertainment industries and things of that nature, and that got shut down. And now you might say, like, well, I make my money in tech and I make my money in this, and that's not going anywhere. How do you know? How do we know that, like, there's not some thing that's going to happen, that's just going to take over or shut down tech or real estate or podcast industry, or the influencer stuff that a lot of people are doing not right now, or that's going to destroy crypto? Whatever it is, we just have no idea. We just don't know what the future holds. And by increasing your lifestyle nonstop, you're putting yourself at the mercy of whatever it is, right? Like, maybe you're like, oh, well, I have my own business. I'm not at the mercy of anything. I'm my own boss and things like that. Well, you're still, if you're a business owner, you're always at the mercy of your customers, right? Like, if your customers tomorrow decide that they don't like you anymore, and there's the next big thing that's more interesting, or that's better or cheaper or whatever it is, they're going to pivot there, right? So you're always at the mercy of something or someone, whatever it might be, and that could go left, right, whatever it is. We just have no idea. So, the best technique is to continue living below your means until you've secured, a safe amount of money and things like that, um, and, and things of that nature. Um, so what to do instead? So um, let's talk about it. So let's start with this 2030, 2050-30, right? And we'll go back to that $50,000 example where you're making $50,000 after taxes. Well, in that situation, right, I have notes written down. That means that you're saving $10,000 a year. And well, let's hope that in year two, right, you increase your income a little. Let's say you get a raise from work. Your investments are starting to make a little bit money for yourself, and you even get yourself a little investment property that cash flows you a couple dollars every month. And now this year you make $60,000. So it's like pretty good. Okay. Well, the advice in this situation would be instead of following the 20, 50, 30, right? Like that would mean that like you're now going back and you're saving only 20%. I actually didn't calculate this number, but 20% of that 60,000. I should be able to do that quick math. What is that? 15,000. Sorry, we're all over the place here. So I still got it. The quick math. But now you would technically say 15,000, spend whatever it is, spend 30,000, and then the left would go to your discretionary income, right? So that would be what you're normally doing. Well, the recommendation would be, well, no, actually, do not increase your lifestyle. Instead, just save whatever you just made extra, right? There's $60,000. Well, you were already living off of $40,000, right? Like your whether it's your discretionary and your fixed expenses, they were $40,000. Now you would save instead $20,000. Well, now in year three, let's say the exact same thing happened. Well, you get a little bit bigger promotion, you invested more, so your investments are paying off even more, and your investment property went up in value. Therefore, you're able to charge a little bit more for rent. And this year, you make $80,000. Like, okay, well, this is pretty cool. 2 years later, you're making $30,000 more than you were making a couple of years earlier. Well, instead, save that $30,000 instead of increasing your lifestyle to right. Um, I'm not going to do quick math again. So you're increasing the do not increase your lifestyle, and this year you would say $40,000. And now you start looking at it, you're like, okay, well, I'm 2 years down the line. Now I'm saving four times. 2 years later, I'm saving four times what I started saving. This is starting to get pretty interesting. But the question here, and the question we started the episode with, was when can you start spending your money, right? So you might be like, oh, well, that's not what I came here for. Like, cool, cool, cool. I know about the saving and all that. And the answer is never. You never stop spending. You live in your little crappy apartment and you drive your 2009 Civic forever, just like I'm doing. Um, Obviously, that's a joke, but yeah, there are times when you're going to legitimately be able and in a position to start increasing. You can start right away if you want. You don't have to listen to anything I say, but I think that sign number one that you're ready to start increasing your lifestyle is when the money that you're making passively, meaning not by getting up, going to work, is starting to pay your bills, right? Like, so when you're starting to make that $40,000 off of your investments, your real estate property, and all of those different things, and that comes in every year, you can probably increase your lifestyle, right? And that might take you a little bit of time, um, but that's okay. Um, it's also well worth it because I think that there's also a shift that happens once you start doing that for a year or two, where you start being like, I don't really care about any of those material things anymore. Like I see most of my friends, and I had this conversation with one of my buddies, actually Jeff, who you guys saw on the podcast, and he said that like a lot of like his friends are making a lot of money in this crypto game, and I'm seeing the same things with a lot of my friends that are making a lot of money, and mentors. They're actually decreasing their lifestyle, right? They're like selling their fancy cars and things like that, and I mean they're all buying Teslas because they don't want to pay for gas, but still, like they're not, they're not. they're living in more modest apartments or more modest homes and things like that. And they're making more financially sound decisions because they're really acknowledging the fact that having the money and growing your money is brings you more satisfaction than having those material things or the things that people makes people think that you have money, right? So like that's why even for myself, like I rarely look at people and I'm like, oh, this person has a lot of money. So there is that shift that happens. Sign number two, is that is when you're starting uh, to save more than you spend. So that's a really cool spot to get. So right, we spoke about year one, you're making $50,000, and then your savings, you're saving $10,000, spending $40,000. We got to year three where you're basically spending 40, saving 40. Well, that year four might be a good time for you to be like, okay, let me add $5,000 to my car payment, whatever it is, right? So over the course of a year, not a month. But let me do this, whatever it is, right? Like maybe creep up, like get a little bit nicer apartment. Maybe at that point you decide that you want to get serious with your significant other, get married, whatever it is. Um, but yeah, that's a good spot. That's a good time to probably start spending a little bit more money because right now you're at that point you're in a good spot. But I think that the ultimate moment when you can start creeping up in lifestyle and enjoy it to the fullest. And I think that really for you to internally think, okay, I can enjoy this car and I can enjoy this house and not have it stress you out is when your goals aren't checked, right? Let me give you this example. Let's say you want to be in a position to retire at 35. Um, Ambitious goal, right? But let's just say that, and I'll use myself as a guinea pig. Let's say I have $0 right now, and I want to retire by 35, and I'm like, okay, I want to retire under $150,000 after tax income. That's what I want to have every year. I want to have $150,000. Well, by 35, I would need to have $3.75 million saved. If you don't know how, go back and listen to the fire episode that I made. I might link it here. I might not. Um, but go listen to that. Um, and if you saved up, let's say we starting with zero. I'm the 27-year-old that I am now, and let's say I have $0 saved up. I don't have a single asset, no debt. We're starting at zero. I would need to save $300,000 every single year. Meaning that if I make $340,000, well, I'm still living off. And we go back to the $50,000 example, and let's say like I started making $50,000 like 5 years ago, but I didn't save a dollar. I spent it all in a nice Mercedes Benz and all Gucci shoes. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, we're a couple years later, and now I want to save 300,000. I've gotten enough raises to make $300,000, but my lifestyle, I can get by living with $40,000 a year. Um, I would then save the $300,000. Well, if next year I make $350,000, well, now I can increase my lifestyle by 10,000 because I'm still saving the $300,000 that gets me to my goals, right? Because the goals are taken care of. I'm on track to hit my goals, to reach my goals, and we're good there. Now you can use that to speed up those goals, or or make those goals bigger. Maybe I can retire off 175K instead of 150, whatever it is. But you can also increase your lifestyle and feel good about it. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. Now, I know that this number slash goal sounded ridiculous, because it kind of is, like retiring in 8 years. Um, and those numbers, if you guys have questions around those numbers, um, I've made a lot of episodes talking about, compounding interest and how that works and things of that nature. The fire episode, like I said, is a great one. If you want to know how to actually calculate what it takes you to retire. Um, but yeah, you can actually edit this number, whether it's your age, or the amount of money that you need every single year. I've done that in the past. I've done that when I was a financial advisor. Some people, they're like, okay, well, I'm making 200 right now, but my goal is really to retire in 10 years at a $40,000 income, whatever it is. But you can calculate that. You can edit those numbers pretty easily. So, don't be afraid. Do that. But hit us up. my team, we do that. We help people with that basic finance. Go on our website, 1%ofjuju.com, and schedule your free consultation. And if it's something that we can help with, more than happy to help with that. But overall, I hope this helps. If it does, please share. Please share with someone, with a friend, family member, anyone really, someone that you think may need information like this, especially in times where we are not on social media. That is the only way that this platform will grow. So I will ask for your help. Please help us grow this and share this knowledge because we want to see more people succeed. Outside of that, just go ahead and leave a like, rating, review, comment. These really help me understand, what kind of content you guys enjoy, what kind of content I should make more of. So please leave more of those. And also, this mighty YouTube algorithm, and same thing with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those other podcasting platforms. That's what they do. The more interaction there is, the more they push it to more people. And I think that this is content that can really help a lot of people. So help us reach more people, please, and thank you. As always, I really appreciate you guys joining me. Go out there and get rich, man. There's a lot of money going around there. Get your share of the pie. Don't let those people have all the fun without you being included in it. But today, as always, you guys already know. Make sure that you're taking the steps today to ensure that you're 1% closer to your goal than you were yesterday. Have a great day.